Is Brad Treliving actually crazy enough to trade away Auston Cowan, Ben Danford, and Matias Maccelli just acquired JT Miller, a 32-year-old veteran with a 4-year, $8 million contract? Or would this be the ultimate organizational disaster that destroys the future for a short-term rental that could decline at any moment? Let me set the stage for what's become an absolutely seismic development in the trade market. It's Thursday, January 21st, 2026, and there's been a complete organizational collapse in Manhattan that could potentially send shockwaves all the way to Toronto. According to reports from Charlie McAfee, the New York Rangers have essentially thrown in the towel. The season has been severely below expectations, and the front office has initiated an aggressive retooling. And in this timeline, the captain who's going down with the ship is none other than JT Miller. The situation in New York is absolutely fascinating from a competitive standpoint. The Rangers brought Miller in last year to be their leader, their centerpiece, their franchise player. Now, with Artemi Panarin heading toward free agency without a contract extension, and rumors swirling about Adam Fox and Vincent Trocheck potentially being moved, Madison Square Garden has essentially become a luxury clearance sale. The organization is dismantling. From Toronto's perspective, J.D. Miller would be a dream acquisition for Craig Berube, a seriously impactful player who would fit perfectly alongside Auston Matthews. Imagine the physicality of Miller protecting Matthews. Imagine him leading a line with John Tavares and William Nylander. That would be the ultimate sandpaper with elite talent attached. That's the kind of player who could transform a locker room through sheer force of will and competitive intensity. But here's where the dream becomes an absolute nightmare. The Rangers are not going to retain salary on a contract that extends through 2030. That means Toronto absorbs a full $8 million annually for 4 more years on a 32-year-old player. And the acquisition cost? You're going to lose Auston Cowan and Ben Danford at minimum, along with Matias Maccelli. That's not just trading one prospect. That's essentially clearing out the entire future of the organization. Think about what that means. You're trading your best prospect, Auston Cowan, who's already producing at the NHL level and has shown he belongs in the top 6. You're trading your best young defenseman, Ben Danford, who represents the future of the blue line. You're trading an elite playmaker, Matias Maccelli, who's already contributing at the NHL level. And you're getting a 32-year-old veteran with a massive contract that could become an albatross if his production declines. That's the kind of move that closes a championship window. In 2 years, if Miller starts to decline, you've mortgaged everything for a short-term push. And if it doesn't result in a Stanley Cup, you're left with nothing. Here's where Pierre LeBrun tries to inject some sanity into the conversation. Miller has no intention of waiving his no-movement clause. But we all know how the NHL actually works. If the Rangers front office sits down with Miller and says, "We're trading Panarin and Fox. We're rebuilding this team," does Miller really want to stay and lead a team full of prospects? Does he want to be the veteran anchor on a rebuilding project? The door is definitely cracked open, even if it's not wide open. If Toronto gets desperate enough, maybe after missing out on Jordan Kyrou or Dougie Hamilton, Treliving could absolutely make the call. He could convince Miller to waive his no-trade clause by promising him a contending team, by showing him the roster with Matthews and the other talent, by making the pitch that Toronto is a legitimate championship contender. That's a compelling argument for a veteran like Miller. But here's the brutal reality. The cost is absolutely ludicrous. The report concludes with genuine wisdom. The Maple Leafs would be smart to stay away from Miller. The cost of assets is ridiculous, and the contract is a potential anchor that could sink the organization if things go wrong. You'd be better off focusing on Dougie Hamilton for the defense, or exploring other options like Jordan Kyrou for the offense, where at least the risk comes with youth and potential upside. The comparison to other acquisitions is also instructive. We've been discussing Dougie Hamilton, who's 33 years old, but brings elite offensive talent from the blue line. We've been discussing Steven Stamkos, who's 35 but has championship experience. But J.D. Miller at 32 with 4 years remaining on an $8 million contract is a completely different proposition. He's not a short-term rental. He's a long-term financial commitment that could cripple the organization's flexibility. Here's what I think is actually happening. Brad Treliving is probably aware of Miller's availability, but he's also probably smart enough to recognize that the price is simply too high. He's going to focus on acquiring Dougie Hamilton. He's going to continue exploring other options, and he's going to avoid the Miller trap. That's the prudent approach. The question for Brad Treliving is whether he's willing to sacrifice the entire future for a short-term push with JT Miller. If the answer is no, and I suspect it is, then he needs to stay focused on the defensive acquisitions and avoid getting seduced by the idea of adding another elite forward. So here's the question for Leafs Nation. Should Brad Treliving pursue JT Miller aggressively and trade Easton Cowan, Ben Danford, and Matias Maccelli to acquire him? Or should he absolutely refuse and stay away from this deal? Is Miller worth the astronomical price? Or would this be organizational suicide? Would you support this acquisition if you were a Leafs fan? Or would you see it as the ultimate disaster? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit that like button if you want more coverage of this potential acquisition and the strategic direction of the franchise. Because right now, the Maple Leafs are facing a critical choice about whether to pursue star power at any cost or whether to maintain organizational discipline and focus on smarter acquisitions. The Rangers are selling. The market is open. But sometimes the best move is to walk away from a deal that's simply too expensive.